The past perfect is made with had and the past participle of the verb we use to convey action. I had visited Dan. He had gone with Jason. They had worked hard. She had rephrased her statement. We had watched it 10 times. You had said so.
In the day-to-day life, we talk about actions or events that occurred before a certain past time. To do so, we use the past perfect to connect the two past times.
We often use the past perfect to connect two past times, a previous past time with a later past time. When we arrived, past time, at the train station, the train had left, previous past time. Last year, I visited Canada, past time, but I had never visited Canada, previous past time, before.
You understand now why the grammar of spoken English is important. If you learn it, you produce correct sentences as you write or speak. You're an adult. Therefore, you need to understand logically why and how you produce sentences in a certain way. Children don't need to be told why and how because it is an unconscious process for them. To express meanings naturally, adults need to understand why and how. We help you understand each subject entry. We give you rules and real-life examples that answer your whys and hows. You've already learned how various verbs and their tenses work. But what we did not tell you yet is that we have regular and irregular verbs in English. In English, most of the verbs are regulars. We call them regulars because they form both their past tense and past participle by adding the suffix ed to their infinitive. In other languages, verbs are not as easy as they are in English. To show you the time of the action they convey, which we use to call tense, we use different forms of the verbs. We also use auxiliary verbs with the main verbs for the same purpose.
Unlike other languages that have more verb tenses, there are only 6 verb tenses in English: present, past, future, present perfect, past perfect, and future perfect. At their turn, these verb tenses have different forms. But what makes it easy in English is that all the forms of a tense are made from the principal part of a verb.
You know that regular verbs form the simple past and the past participle by adding the particle ed to their bare form. But there are many irregular verbs that do not follow the ed pattern. There are some patterns among them, but we cannot use them as rules. The irregular verbs are mostly unpredictable. The only way to know them is to memorize them. The most important irregular verbs that also act as auxiliaries are to be, to have, and to do. To be may seem a little tricky because its past tense forms change depending on the subject. Its past participle is been.
To be, irregular and auxiliary. I was. You were. He, she, it was. We were. You were. They were. The past participle of the verb to be is been.
To have and to do are simpler than to be.
To have and to do, irregular and auxiliary. Bare form, have. Past tense, had. Past participle, had. Bare form, do. Past tense, did. Past participle, done.
The irregular verbs fall into three main categories: verbs that don't change, verbs that change their vowel, and verbs that change completely.
Irregular verbs. 1. Verbs that don't change. Cut, cut, cut. Hit, hit, hit. Fit, fit, fit. 2. Verbs that change their vowel. Catch, caught, caught. Find, found, found. 3. Verbs that change completely. Arise, arose, arisen. Eat, ate, eaten. Fly, flew, flown. Like regular verbs do, irregular verbs also have a base form, to run, an ing formed, gerund, where ing is added to the end of the verb, running, an s, es, ies form, where s, es, ies is added to the end of the verb, runs. A past tense form which must be learned, ran. A past participle form which must be learned, run.
Remember, irregular verbs do not follow the ed suffix pattern. There are some patterns among them, but we cannot use them as rules. The irregular verbs are mostly unpredictable. If you don't know them, you can only learn them in context. Why is it important to know how the verbs work? It is important because only by using verbs in clear correlation we can appropriately convey action or express our thoughts, feelings, and ideas. The clearer the correlation between the verbs we use, the better we'll express the meaning we intended to convey. The last subject entry episode 6 teaches is homophones and other confusing words.
Homophones are words that are pronounced alike but have different meaning and spelling. If you do not understand the meaning of a word, look it up in a dictionary. Accept, accept. Add, add. Ate, ate. Buy, buy, buy. Sight, sight, sight. Desert, dessert. Eat, it. For, for. Hear, hear. New, new. Know, now. Off, of. Right, right. Then, than. There, there. To, two, two. Wander, wonder. Weather, weather.
Words that sound the same are confusing, no doubt. Homophones are even more confusing because of the differences in spelling between word pairs. Let's take a look at some examples.
The add homophones. 1. Dan ran an ad in the newspaper. Correct. 2. What do we get if we add 2 and 2? Correct. 3. Dan ran an ad in the newspaper. Incorrect. 4. What do we get if we add 2 and 2? Incorrect. The eight homophones. 1. An octopus has 8 legs. Incorrect. 2. An octopus has 8 legs. Correct. 3. Jason ate his lunch an hour ago. Incorrect. 4. Jason ate his lunch an hour ago. Correct. The buy homophones. 1. Dan wanted to buy Jason a nice present. Incorrect. 2. Dan wanted to buy Jason a nice present. Correct. 3. Dan wanted to buy Jason a nice present. Incorrect. 4. It's hard to say bye to people you love. Incorrect. 5. It's hard to say bye to people you love. Correct. 6. It's hard to say bye to people you love. Incorrect. 7. Jason goes to school by bus. Correct. 8. Jason goes to school by bus. Incorrect. 9. Jason goes to school by bus. Incorrect.
Don't forget, homophones are words that are pronounced alike, but have different meaning and spelling. Don't confuse homophones with homonyms or homographs, which are other confusing words as well.
The word homonym comes from the Latin homonymum. It represents one of 2 or more words that are identical in sound and spelling, but different in meaning. Bank, a slope. Bank, a place for money. Bank, a bench or row of switches. A homograph is a word that has the same spelling as another word, but has a different origin and meaning. For example, mail, meaning letters, and mail, meaning armor. The verb lead and the metal lead.
The definitions we just gave you for homophones, homonyms, and homographs are clear and simple, but they become less stable when we begin to analyze English words in order to classify them. Therefore, when you run across confusing words, look them up in a dictionary. Also, do have in mind that since we do not all pronounce words the same way, word pairs in one geographical area may not be homonyms in other locations. Additionally, don't forget that changes in pronunciation occur continually. Words that are pronounced the same at one time may not be pronounced the same way at another time.